Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Wind Waker Unflooded. I am your host, Kendrick, and this is a 3D modeling fan art project where we are bringing to life the world of Hyrule within the world and art style of The Legend of Zelda, The Wind Waker. Welcome to a new episode. So today we are just plugging away at the terrain again, as we always are. I don't know why I say it like that, because this is a map-making project. For me to say, yes, we're working on the map in this episode of my map making series. It's a little bit silly, so I apologize. You know what? I'm not gonna apologize. I'm not gonna apologize. That admits fault, and I can never admit fault. No, I have to. Yeah. Anyway, we're working on the Great Plateau today. That's all I'm trying to say, and it's just a little bit plugging away at working on some hills in there, working at kind of the in-between area between what is it? Diamond Step Island. Is it Mount Hylia? Is that what it's called? The snowy mountain on the Great Plateau. As I've said earlier in my previous Great Plateau video, kind of my concept for the Great Plateau is, and this is based on other theories that I've shared with the community, but this idea that Skyloft would have descended onto the Great Plateau, and maybe that settlement resprouted as time passed and has transformed into a new area, basically. And I think that's kind of an interesting guiding principle here. And so that's guiding my decisions with how I'm developing the Great Plateau creatively. And I like the way that it's turning out. And I think like that's an interesting concept. Skyloft, I think, is a really important location. It's this, Hylian settlement before there was ever a Hyrule. And so it's a very important location. I like the idea of kind of showing that, yeah, it crashed down to Earth and redeveloped. And there's locations that, there's buildings that wouldn't exist anymore that would be familiar, but we can look at the basic structure of some of the hills and the way paths connect to each other, and we can and the waterways, and we can recognize a little bit of, yeah, that is kind of the shape of Skyloft. And I think that that's an interesting kind of thing to witness there. And I know the Zelda does that, between games as well. There's things that's like, there's nothing saying these are the exact same location, but I've talked to people in the community talking about, what are the locations connecting the like the Twilight Princess Sacred Grove kind of ruins of the Temple of Time. There's a lot of things where there's a similar layout here and there to, I think it's the is it the Sacred Forest Meadow? Excuse me, I was gonna say Sacred Grove again. Sacred Forest Meadow from Ocarina of Time, and comparing that to the Twilight Princess. And there's a lot of similarities with the steps and the layout of just the two areas. And connecting parts of the Temple of Time as well to the Forest Temple, which I think is an interesting, there's things about it that don't look like a coincidence, right? So what is that saying? And I kind of want to do a similar kind of situation here with the Great Plateau. There's things that's like, there may not be like things that are like, oh yeah, that is from Skyloft. There may be no remaining structure, but just looking at the layout of the land and looking around, you go, wait, this feels like Skyloft. And that's kind of the goal. That is kind of my goal with the location there. Shout out to Dynamic for making the version of Temple of Time that is visible on the Great Plateau as well. I don't think I shouted out that enough in the last video on the Great Plateau. I think it's a really nice Temple of Time. I'm excited that, like, yeah, we have now 2 Temple of Times in the project, and I think I appreciate that they're both different. They both kind of show off different, there's subtle differences. I should make a video, maybe I shouldn't, comparing the two, because, they're made by 2 separate modelers, and I don't want to create any kind of competition there. I appreciate that they both fit within the project. One is outside of Castletown, and one is on the Great Plateau. And I like that they are, that they can both kind of contribute to the project. And, because that's something I think in the series, I think, like, there are multiple Temples of Time. I think that's part of the Zelda lore, is that that's not just one location, it's several locations. And it is a temple. Like, I think it makes sense for there to be different buildings, different sites of worship. Like, that's how churches work. It's not just one building that is one church. A single church and especially a single denomination would have many, many, many different buildings, right? Full of different communities and different congregations that are all coming together to, worship the same thing or similar things. Sometimes that's not always the same. But, excuse me. I grew up as a Southern boy. I'm not going to say anything more than that. Uh, but y'all, let's see. I'm thinking about what else do I want to talk about with the Great Plateau and the work that I've been working on today. I've also been working on, like, there was that bridge connecting the Great Plateau to the kind of the cliffs over Lake Hylia, and I wanted to work on that area as well and kind of just piece it all together and just kind of make a more interesting set of terrain. But I think with that all in mind, before we continue with the video, y'all, I think it's time for a short message. So I will talk to all of you again after the break. See you then.
If you want to be able to support me as a creator, there are several ways that you can make possible the creation of everything that I do. Become a Patreon member. I post all kinds of exclusive content that you can only see first on Patreon. Stuff like behind-the-scenes content for my filmmaking projects, whether that's in-progress scripts, storyboards, rough cuts, anything for my newest films that aren't posted anywhere else besides Patreon. So become a member. There's a whole range of prices, and you can support me even in small ways. That's super meaningful. Supporting me on Patreon too gets you in the credits list of any film that I release while you're a member. And like I said, even a little goes a long way. You can also collaborate with me now through Fiverr. I offer a range of services that could help bring your project to life. And if you've heard any music in the background of this video, that was my music. So feel free to look me up on Spotify or Apple Music or wherever you listen to music. Type in Joe Kendrick. That's JoeKendrick. Look up Joe Kendrick on Spotify. Supporting me is super meaningful. I don't make any ad revenue on Wind Waker Unflooded. If you see an ad on the videos, because YouTube is putting ads on my videos, I'm not making any ad revenue from this project. It's completely not monetized for me. So if you want to be able to support me as a creator, any way that you can do that means a lot, and it goes towards the creation of all that I do. So thank you to everyone who's supported me along the way.
And we're back. Welcome back. What am I going to talk about next? I think it might be time to address the how do I put this? Another thing that I wanted to work on with the Great Plateau is, I guess, like I said, like connecting it to the cliffs of Lake Hylia, thinking about how you reach the Great Plateau. It's super isolated right now, and I think it may be just like I need to just like put like a bridge in, something like that. That could be the move. But until then, I thought, like, in addition to a potential bridge, I haven't worked on like a bridge between that for this project. I think that could be cool and dramatic, but at the very least, I think it could be cool to have a cave system that you would have to traverse in order to kind of get from kind of under the Great Plateau to the top of it, because there's a huge elevation gain that kind of comes out of nowhere. And I think it makes sense that, well, what do you do if I haven't modeled a bridge, like, theoretically, besides like the land bridge. I think it would be nice to have like a bridge that goes from the top of the Great Plateau to like the cliffs of Lake Hylia, maybe to like a tower in some way. I think that would be helpful. But I think, yeah, like if that goes down, I think it makes sense to have this cave system that goes between Lake Hylia and the land bridge that I modeled and connects that to the Great Plateau, so where you can kind of wind through the caves and it will take you to the top of the Great Plateau. I think that'd be really useful, and I thought it'd be interesting to kind of have a kind of subterranean, is that the word? I think that's the word, kind of terrain there. I thought that'd be interesting. I thought that'd be cool. I thought that'd be spooky and kind of dramatic there, and that kind of excited me to work on and think about, to kind of build out this cave and think about, yeah, like what's it going to mean to kind of sneak through this, the kind of under this mountain that the Great Plateau is on, and kind of snake through that up to the surface. And I'm excited to keep working on that. And you can imagine fighting enemies through there, right? If this was a game, right? You can imagine walking through there and, just the journey of going through these caves. Because I don't do a lot of caves in Wind Waker Unflooded. And I think for obvious reasons, I prioritize locations that can be seen from above. I want to focus on the major leaps, right? Rather than focusing on things that aren't even hardly visible. However, I wanted to go ahead and work on this because there's a functional reason for it to exist, as I've already explained, right? there's a functional reason to have carved out caves to need to travel between the bottom and top of the Great Plateau. So I think it makes sense to go ahead and model it because it makes sense within the functionality of the world and helps tell that story. It's not just a detail, it's something that is important for, showing traversal throughout the world and implying that travelers are able to go between areas and showing realistic ways that they would have to walk from place to place. I think that that's important. And it also kind of helps tell the story that the Great Plateau is, I don't really know if it's a place that is like currently developed or if it's just kind of this haven of old ruins, right? I don't really know what story I want to tell with it, because that's how it is in Breath of the Wild, right? It's just kind of haven of old ruins. It's not a current settlement. And so I think if that's all it is, then I don't need to worry about making like traveling, like what am I trying to say? Making it super accessible to travel, and I don't have to worry about the common person or merchants or whoever accessing the Great Plateau regularly. And so a cave system, I think, makes sense for that. But I think also, like, if it is something where I want to show that there's a current settlement, then yeah, I think, like I said before, like having a new bridge connecting it to like a tower over Lake Hylia or something like that, where you don't have to travel through caves to get to the top. Having another alternative could be helpful as well. And so these are just all things I'm thinking about. It's like I want this to kind of make sense within the lore. I do think about the lore, y'all, and I'd like to discuss it more. I recently recorded a podcast episode with Alex, just talking about kind of just like the world and the lore, and I'd like to kind of keep having discussions on just like very focused discussions on the lore. And so I might record some videos just kind of unpacking that, because I think that would be interesting, really unpacking creative decisions for Wind Waker Unflooded and how my perspective impacts all of that, right? Even though I think a lot of my decisions are map making decisions, I think it could make sense to kind of show all of the creative decisions that I make going into the project. But I think without further ado, y'all, thank you so much for watching. I think we're at the end of the video. I'm gonna start wrapping it up. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. Leave a comment down below if you have any ideas. I'd love to see your ideas for the project. So let me know what you want to see next, locations you want to see me pull from other Zelda games, or just new things that you think would make sense within the world of this project that you would like to see in the map. So comment down below your ideas, and without further ado, I'll let you go.